Welcome to another exciting edition of Hindsight is Horrifying, the show where two seemingly normal adults talk about movies and TV shows from their youth, this time while eating pizza and drinking beer, which is pretty much how I was doing it in my youth.
Yeah.
Today we are looking back on probably one of the most beloved movies that has ever been made.
Yeah, of all time, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know anyone who doesn't like this movie. Even a person as cynical as me, who thinks Rob Reiner is the most overrated director in history.
Ooh.
Well, he made 4 movies that were good.
All right.
Okay, so,
We'll get into it.
Yeah. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I was introducing the movie. We are talking about the fantasy, classic, comedy, romantic, drama movie.
It checks all the boxes.
Yeah, it's got all of it in there.
And I've got notes on that, too.
Yes, we do. The Princess Bride.
Yay!
Now, Darth, why don't you tell us a little bit about the movie and about our special guest this evening?
Indeed. Welcome, listeners, to 1987's The Princess Bride, featuring, at the time, who was more famous... Fred Savage was more famous than Robin Wright because
who looks like a young Jay Leno.
Oh my god, a little bit. Okay,
yeah, it looks like he's baby Jay Leno.
Yeah. That's his nickname throughout the rest of the show. If you hear Baby Jay Leno, just think Fred Savage. But yeah, so this is a movie that I doubt I even have to summarize for anybody listening because most of us grew up with it, or at least got.
I bet there are young people out there who have never
That's
seen
something
this
I always
movie.
forget.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. For the few young people we have who listen to our old ass rants about movies that happened before they were born. So yeah, the basic story is about this farm girl named Buttercup who grows up on a farm, and she's actually
Claire Underwood,
also known as Robin Wright.
Yeah.
So she has this sort of, not argumentative but disdainful relationship with the farmhand Wesley, and they have this sort of cute back and forth where she commands him around, and the whole movie even starts actually with Fred Savage. Let's get back to him, where he's a sick grandson in bed, and his granddad comes to read to him for the day. And Fred Savage is being a little brat about it. He goes, "Oh, Mom."
Young Jay Leno.
young Jay Leno.
Yeah, there he is. Yeah.
But we got Peter Falk as the granddad who comes to read him a book, and
Columbo.
Yes, Columbo. He's missing the trench coat. But so they're sitting there reading a story, which doesn't happen in the book, by the way, in case you're interested. The grandson-granddad dynamic does not exist in the book. But we're reading about Wesley and Buttercup, who fall in love while they live on the farm together. But Wesley goes across the sea to find his fortune so that he can become worthy of Buttercup's love. And this movie checks so many boxes. It's... what does the grandpa say? Are you kidding me? Fencing, fighting, torture, revenge, giants, monsters, chases, escapes, true love, miracles. It encapsulates.
Yeah.
It hits just about every mile marker you could want it to hit. So it's a movie about adventure and romance and also all of those wonderful, wholesome, good things. So listeners, we have a super special guest with us this week. Her name is Cece.
Hello.
And Cece, why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about why you wanted to discuss this movie?
So this is one of my favorite movies of all time. One of my favorite movies growing up, mine and my brother's. And I have seen it so many times, countless times.
Oh, yeah. There aren't digits.
One of the most quotable movies, probably.
Big time.
Mm-hmm.
My brother and I quote it constantly, still to this day.
Okay.
And I love it so much. My bridal shower theme was even Princess Bride themed.
Mm-hmm.
Aw.
So, yes, this is the perfect movie. For me to get.
Yeah, it really, I think it does fall into that rare category of movies that don't have a flaw. Usually, even a movie that you really like, you'll admit, yeah, I really like, The Goonies, but...
This could have been better.
Yeah, but
this
and that could have been better. This one, really, there's nothing to change.
It still feels timeless.
Yeah,
when
it does.
You watch it.
Well, and I think one of the smart decisions that they made when they made this movie is that it's not very long.
No, it doesn't go on forever.
No, it doesn't.
True.
There's no scene in this where you just go, come on, get through
through the boring
come
stuff.
on,
Yeah. Get the ring to Mordor, guys. Come on.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
We've had enough after 10 years.
Doesn't have 5
Yeah.
endings.
Hint. Yeah.
But, well, and oddly enough, this movie, it's the same way from the audience perspective as well as apparently all the actors who were involved. Because, and listeners, you know your nerdy Darth Jader does her extensive research before every movie, no matter how well she knows it or doesn't. And part of the research that I did for this book, or this movie, was to read the book of Cary Elwes. It's called As You Wish. And for you youngins out there who don't know the name Cary Elwes, he is Wesley. He's the hero of the story. And he actually wrote this whole book about behind-the-scenes stories and all of his feelings and just the memories that he has of shooting this amazing movie. And he says repeatedly in the book, and so does Chris Sarandon, who plays Prince Humperdinck, they both said, yeah, it's so rare with a movie that you get everybody together and they're all happy and it's all fun. Usually there's at least one bad apple spoiling the bunch or there's some drama or whatever. They were like, no, it was like our little traveling circus and everybody just got along with everybody. It was great.
You know, the story that I heard that I think sums that up the best is that Robin Wright would evidently, she would get very, very cold. And Andre the Giant would take one of his hands and put it on her head and cover her entire head to keep her warm.
I believe that because one of the things Cary always does mention in his book is the fact that Andre always ran incredibly hot. So they'd be in England shooting and it'd be, you know, maybe 40 or 50 degree weather and they'd all have little jackets or fleeces on in between takes. And Andre actually wore a wig for this movie, for those of you who don't know. And in the when they're about to storm the castle toward the end of the film, when Wesley's coming back from being mostly dead and being paralyzed, he said that Andre was literally steaming from underneath his wig because he was so hot. Yeah. He wouldn't wear a coat. He didn't need one, and it was just ridiculous.
Well, I mean, the dude was what? He's 7'4.5".
Something like that.
You know, I mean, tragically died very young.
Yeah.
And it, you know, and I don't know if it's true, but I watched this movie, and I just like to think that Andre the Giant really was a big, sweet guy.
Oh, trust me, I've got notes on that, too.
That's all I've heard about him.
Yeah, I've never heard. The only things that would happen is that he's kind of like a very big, intimidating dog in the sense that, like, kids either ran to him or ran from him when they would first see him. Chris Sarandon shared a story with Cary Elwes saying how his daughters were like, Daddy, you're in a movie with a real-life giant? Is he really that big? Can we see him? Can we meet him? And so he took his two daughters to the set, and he was like, all right, we're going to go into the giant's dressing room. Let's go see him. And they saw him, took one look, and ran screaming out of his trailer. And Chris was so embarrassed. He was like, oh, Andre, I'm so sorry. He was like, that was so rude. He was like, they were asking to meet you.
Right,
I didn't know they were going to do that. And he goes, nah, it's a thing. Kids either run to me or they run from me. It just didn't faze him at all.
Yeah. Well, he probably didn't set it up right. It was probably, you know, like, okay, we're going to go see the giant.
Yeah, he really is gigantic.
Yeah, he's a huge giant, you know.
I get the impression that he is more of a gentle giant, kind of like your Millie.
Oh, my giant German Shepherd, yes.
Well, that sort
She's
of
a derp and a half.
It makes sense, too, when you think that, you know, as big as he was, you know, he had a lot of health problems.
Yes, he did.
You know, like the movie, and when you see him in his career, in his professional capacity, it's always Andre the Giant, the big guy who can, you know, pick people up and throw them around. He couldn't do any of that stuff. His back was totally messed up.
Yep. Robin Wright mentioned that. She said that when they were on set, it was it was obvious that he was in pain. He'd get up from a sitting position or whatever, but he never complained. He was always smiling, just seemed like the nicest guy on the planet. But getting more into Andre the Giant 2, we've gotten to the point in the movie where Buttercup has been kidnapped, which happens pretty quickly. So you get into the action pretty fast.
Yeah, the story starts and it starts.
Because Wesley and Buttercup fall in love in about the first minute and a half of the movie. Wesley goes off to discover his fortune, but then Buttercup gets word, tragically, that Wesley was killed by the Dread Pirate Roberts, who never leaves any survivors. So now we flash forward to Buttercup is about to be the new princess of the country of Florin. And so then she gets kidnapped because the only happiness she finds on a daily basis is going out for a ride on her horse. Enter Wallace Shawn, Mandy Patinkin, and Andre the Giant.
Mandy Patinkin. I love Mandy
and
Patinkin.
Inigo Montoya.
I love saying his name.
Oh,
Mandy Patinkin.
Well, and he makes me happy too.
I died laughing when I learned that was his name.
Oh, yeah.
My mom and I
Really?
have a joke where we rhyme things with his name.
That's tough.
fitting.
That's very tough.
He plays a rhyming game in the movie.
I'm thinking Patinkin.
Okay, yeah.
You know?
That's funny.
Patinkin.
Oh, I want to see you and your mom do this
That's
now.
really the only.
He is such a good actor, and he's got such a career on Broadway. The Man of La Mancha with Mandy Patinkin. If you ever get a chance to listen to that, it is absolutely fantastic. I mean,
I've heard amazing things.
And yet he says this is his favorite role.
Oh yeah, and he even because this movie became such an iconic, not even cult classic. It's just a classic. Everybody loves it. It's not even an underground type of Fight Club sort of thing. It's just it's the kind of movie that people pass on to their kids, to their nephews and nieces. Even when I was a nanny many moons ago, the kids that I used to babysit, they weren't allowed to watch anything above like a G rating. And this was one of the movies I was allowed to share with them. And they flipped out when they saw it. They had never seen it before, and they loved it. And their mom even came in when we were watching it, and she was like, "Is that Mandy Patinkin? I haven't seen him since he was on like ER or some hospital drama or something." But
Criminal Minds?
I have no idea. Oh, was he? Okay, maybe that's what she just said. ER, so I don't know if it was really that. If that's what it was, but you said you would play a rhyming game with your mom, Cece, with his name. But that's so fitting because he and Fezzik rhyme with each other throughout the book and the movie.
Yeah, which is such it's such a little sweet thing that you have,
This
Mandy
big,
Patinkin, and he's
man.
like he rhymes with the big giant. You
They
know?
want to communicate, I think, that he is kind of a gentle soul.
Yeah.
So they have him. Inigo Montoya sees that he's kind of down because Vizzini has been insulting him again.
Yeah, and told him
And
he's
he
going to
does
abandon him. And you remember where you were when I found you? Unemployed in Greenland. And Vizzini's just a jerk, so.
So he does this little rhyming thing with him to cheer him up.
Yeah, what does he say? Vizzini likes to fuss. Fuss, think he like to slam a doors. And with his accent, it rhymes more, but it's fuss and doors, but... and what's really cool about that is that Andre the Giant is French. Mm-hmm. And he obviously, English wasn't exactly his strong suit, especially since he's so large, and I don't know if that factored into it, but sometimes it's hard to understand him a little bit in the movie. So what Rob Reiner did, the director, he actually recorded all of Andre the Giant's lines for him on a cassette tape. The way he wanted the inflection to happen, like everything. So, and because Cary always in his book, he said, you would see Andre walking around with these earphones and a little cassette recorder, and you didn't know what he was listening to until you found out that Rob recorded all of his lines for him, and that's how he learned his lines, because it was difficult for him to read
They should do that with all actors. just feed it to them.
I think that would turn into such micromanagement,
Think
though.
of the time you could save. You could produce a whole movie in like no time.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, they.
And he is French. His actual name is not Andre the Giant. We should specify that. It's Andre Le Giant.
Oh, okay. I'm glad we clarified that.
For those people who didn't know.
Le Giant. But yeah, so we're still right in the action. Buttercup gets accosted and kidnapped by Vizzini, Wallace Shawn.
Yeah.
Whose most famous line is what, Cece?
Inconceivable.
Yeah. You keep using
I
that word.
I do not think it means what you
never
think
get
it
involved in a land war in Asia.
Never going against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
And he found out that he was not the first choice.
No.
And that he thought that he was going to get fired.
Yeah, because it was Danny DeVito who was originally offered the role, and Danny DeVito turned it down, yes. So Wallace Shawn had this severe anxiety about the role, thinking... Every time they did a take, he was like, oh my God, DeVito would have done it this way, or DeVito would have done it that way. And he's like, oh, Rob's going to fire me any day now. Like, it was just a whole thing, and he just had all this anxiety about it. But it's funny because now that's one of his most recognized and cherished roles of all time. But sadly, he and Mandy Patinkin have a different approach to it. So Cary always did say, like, he gets asked to quote lines to people. Like he's like, there's not a day that goes by that somebody doesn't want to say "as you wish" or whatever they want him to say to them. And the same thing with Mandy Patinkin, the famous Inigo Montoya, and Wallace Shawn. But Wallace Shawn will not say "inconceivable."
Really,
he refuses to do it. Apparently,
Why not?
I don't know if he's just tired of it, but
I wish it was a cop. Because then I'd like pull him over and be like, all right, what do you want? You want the speeding ticket or are you going to say inconceivable?
I bet he would do it in that case.
It's one or the other. Give me the ticket.
I can see him doing that because I saw him on a panel a couple of years ago at Dragon Con and I was so psyched. It was a Toy Story panel, which is fine because he's Rex. I love those movies too.
Oh, yeah.
But And since it was Toy Story specific, they were like, okay, try to stick to those kind of questions.
So what, the
and-
first question was, will you say
No.
Yeah.
I was just disappointed because I get up to the front of the line to ask my question, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna lob him a pretty easy one because he's an older guy. I didn't want him. And the movies came out some of them came out so long ago. So I was just like, Mr. Shawn, are you like more Team Woody or Team Buzz? And he was like, oh, I don't know. Those movies came out like 30 years ago. I have no idea. And I was like, what? Like this, I was like, and it'd be different if this was just a general panel
Right.
with Wallace
It's
Shawn
actually a panel on
about
those movies.
Toy Story. But Mandy Patinkin is he's very much the opposite.
Oh,
because,
yeah.
one of the passages that Cary always says, he says, Mandy swears that barely a day goes by that he isn't asked by someone, somewhere, to recite Inigo Montoya's most famous words in which he vows vengeance on behalf of his father. And I never let them down, he says.
See, because he is a proper,
proud of-
he's a proper, like that old-fashioned kind of actor where you go, oh, would you give me some Hamlet? Oh, okay.
Sure,
I'll give you some
twist
of-
my arm.
Please, because it's sort of, when fans say that, what they're saying is, you're really awesome, and I really
Yeah.
like this work that you did, and can
It
I see a
changed
little
my
bit?
life,
Yeah.
or impressed me in such a way that I've never forgotten about it.
Right,
To be known for something
right. I
for
mean,
that long of a time.
Oh yeah, for generations of
line.
people. Yeah.
well, I mean, that's like, some of the people who were involved in Star Trek, they hated being typecast.
Yeah,
But some
Mark
of the,
Hamill especially.
that was Star Wars.
Oh, Star Trek. You said Star
You
Trek.
just
Sorry.
oh my God! You
I
realize
just
how
messed
many
up so bad.
fans?
Darth Vader.
oh.
Darth Jader is now in trouble. Sorry, I just wasn't. I was actually
With a
thinking
tag
about.
name like
I was
that.
watching the
Yeah.
movie and I wasn't listening. I heard Star and just assumed the word Wars was coming
my
after
Lord.
it. You're wearing a Star Wars hat for crying
Yes,
out
I am.
loud.
I'm wearing my Galaxy's Edge hat.
True.
My Disneyland Galaxy's Edge hat.
As if they don't know that
Yes.
Jade knows the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars.
But no, what I
One
was,
of them has a bear, right?
I think they both have bears. Yeah, the
Either
other
way.
Star Trek just has very small bears
Oh,
that squeak.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The
The one that Harrison Ford hated. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but a lot of the people on Star Trek, they didn't hate being typecast
Mm-hmm.
for the specific reason that they had been in the business for so long and they understood what failure was.
Yes.
That it's like, okay, you mean I have a career playing people like this?
That I already know how to do.
Yeah.
And
That means I have a career. Great. I'll do this till I die. That's fine.
Well, and
you
it
know?
seems like in that same vein, Mark Hamill has actually really embraced the whole Luke Skywalker aesthetic in his older years. I know when he first went away from Star Wars, he was trying to put some separation between him and the whole franchise for a minute at least and get to be known as, this actor that can sing and do Broadway and stuff. But even when he was on Broadway, they had to put his name in parentheticals. They would list him as Mark Hamill, but then in parentheses, Luke Skywalker.
Well,
So that followed him in a way that I don't think he
yeah.
expected.
Did you see Corvette Summer?
I did not.
Right.
But I know
there you
I
go.
know about all of his voice work. He's been the Joker.
But that
He's
was
done-
before the golden age of voice work, though. That
This
was
is true.
yeah.
That's pretty much the only place he had to hide. I guess was somewhere where they can't see his face.
Yeah.
Because he even
And who
appeared
knew
as,
he could sing?
Oh God, he
Yeah.
can do everything. He's
Yeah.
so talented.
He's literally a triple threat.
Yeah, he's awesome. But at this point in the movie, we are at the top of the cliffs of insanity, where
Why are they called that?
They're insanely high cliffs.
Okay.
yeah, they
That
never
works.
really get into
They don't
the derivation of the cliffs of
I love
insanity.
it
take
when,
it at face value.
I love it when Inigo Montoya hands him his Party City sword, and he's like,
No!
I have seen no
I've
equal."
never seen a sequel. Yeah.
These swords were specifically made for Mandy Patinkin and Cary Elwes.
Oh.
I'm not arguing
been
that they
told.
weren't.
It's
I'm
ju-
just saying
it's a thing.
it didn't come across on film that way.
Yeah, and that's one thing
You
that I
like my
learned.
sword? I bought it at Party City.
I was going to be a pirate at Dragon Con this year.
Yes.
But
just like you. What are you, Zorro?
He's blonde Zorro. But
Yeah,
So,
yeah. He lost his cape.
Younger people might know Cary Elwes as the mayor in season 3 of Stranger Things.
yeah, that's true. He did join Stranger Things, and he's about to be on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
And he was on
Yes, he
Psych.
is.
He was the recurring super thief. He was the fancy European
saw
thief.
Psych.
Psych,
I was told to
remember
watch
that.
it, but
Psych-
Oh, you would love it.
yeah, Psych is a show that
heard.
Psych is the equivalent of like a song by Journey. You're not going to run around with a Journey shirt on. You're really not. You're not going to run around telling people, oh, I really love Journey. But as you know, but if it comes
have a funny story
on,
about that, I'll tell you later.
really?
yeah, if it comes on, you're gonna listen to it. And you're gonna enjoy
enough.
it. Yeah,
You're gonna rock out, especially
Yeah.
by yourself.
yeah.
Well, and that's what's
By the way, I stole that whole bit from Jeremy Clarkson. See, I steal them.
Howard!
I steal them, but then I
Let
credit.
me credit.
Yeah.
Very
that's good.
important.
See, that's why I preface all my stories with John Mulaney said this.
Yes, she does preface all of her
All of
stories
them.
with John Mulaney.
because
said
John Mulaney
this.
is my golden god. Thank you very much.
Yes.
If you're listening, John, give me a call.
You should see her going through the drive-through at Zaxby's.
Ma'am, what do you have?
Well, you know,
John
John
Mulaney
Mulaney, yeah.
says. Anyway,
So back to this movie.
yes.
I had no idea as a child what they were talking about in this entire sword fighting scene.
With all of the
With all of the
Benetti's
but now
defense
I
and-
know they're talking about different styles of sword fighting, and they both pretend to be left-handed. In
yes,
turn,
they do.
Yes.
hoping to get the better of each other.
Well, because they were both very extensively trained by sword masters. Peter Diamond, one of the most famous stunt
Who went on
coordinators,
to do one of the greatest movie franchises
Highlander.
ever. Highlander.
and
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Yeah, and Star Wars.
He's
yeah.
involved in a lot of things, but it was Peter Diamond and Bob
Rainbow Bright?
Anderson. What? I was about to.
Throw that
That's in the
in there, yeah.
director's cut where they took all the fight scenes out.
But it was super extensive. So when they first started shooting, it turned out Mandy Patinkin had more sword experience than Cary Elwes. He learned
Huge
that he,
surprise.
well, no, he learned he was going to be part of this movie where he was considered a fencing master, like a master of the sword. And so he actually spent about 4 months in LA just prepping for that in general. And then when they got on location, Peter Diamond and Bob Anderson took Cary and Mandy Patinkin aside and said, okay, guys, from here on out, we own you. When you're not doing something else that you have to be doing, you will have a sword in your hand and you will be practicing. They actually even arranged the movie shooting schedule so that this iconic sword scene was done at the end. They shot it last so that Cary and Mandy Patinkin could have the maximum amount of training to look like honest-to-goodness sword masters.
Wow.
He said,
Yeah.
so Carrie's like, we'd be on set, and the second they yelled cut, I'd be about to sit down in my little chair, and Peter would be by my side and be like, here's your sword, Cary, let's go. And he was like, we never got a second to rest. Everybody else would be goofing about and making jokes in between cuts, but no.
That sounds like it sucks.
Well, and what's funny is that Cary always didn't realize that Mandy Patinkin had a few months training extra than him, so they get on location to start their training the first day at like 9 a.m. And he's like, wow, Mandy, you've got like a really good grip and stuff. You seem like you know what you're doing. And he was just like, there's a little bit of competitive nature between actors, no matter how well you get along with them. And when Mandy told me that he'd already had four months of practice, I was like, damn you, Inigo. Like, he was just like, oh, I want to be better than him. So they just had this little competitive edge
Yeah,
to
but he
it.
didn't read the script. He wins. I mean,
Well, he has to.
try
He's got to
try
look
acting.
capable of
It's
winning.
easier.
You know what's funny is like it's past it now, but there's actually a part where you can see like that Cary Elwes is on ropes or something, like flying up onto one of the rocks.
And they're
It's
on like a
very
mat.
obvious to
They're
me
on like
now.
a mat that's sort of spongy underneath their feet
Is
at
it
some
really?
point. It's like a
Yeah.
yeah, because they had to do that like flip off of the rocks and stuff. So if you look really carefully, you can see where the set was sort of designed for them
Yeah.
to do stuff like that. And that pole that Mandy Patinkin jumps onto and like swings off of, it's got these two
with the perfect handholds
perfect
on
handholds.
it.
Yeah. Just stuff like that.
Why is there a pole there?
Why have I never thought of that?
Yeah, it's
ever? Like I just was like,
and,
okay.
and Mandy Patinkin did his own sort of really
Stunts, as it
embarrassing
were.
jump.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
he does it and grabs it and then ends up basically about 7 inches further away. than
Cary
if he-
always like does this Olympian like dismount.
know.
because
the
Wesley
landing.
was smarter and he knew that he had to cut away to a stunt guy doing it and then cut back. By the way, I've seen this movie a million times, but I've never watched it with the subtitles on. I thought his name was Wesley.
No,
Wesley.
Wesley.
Yeah, my whole life I thought it was
If
Wesley.
Wesley wants you, bless you both. That's what Prince Humperdinck says later in the movie. But I have to take a break for a second, listeners, because Cece did something awesome that only Katie has done so far. She dressed for the part. She's got a red dress on, just like Princess Buttercup, and she looks fantastic. We'll make sure to take pictures and share them with you guys on our social mediums. But we've now gotten to the second fight.
That's good because those pictures of me in the red dress got like no likes.
Well,
at all.
Yours was a little more low cut.
Well,
Cece kept it classy.
You know, I mean, give them what they want.
Don't give away the farm. But don't give away the farm boy. But we haven't even touched on why, what their code is for I love you. In case you guys don't know, when they first start out the story, like I said, the Princess Bride, or Buttercup, orders Wesley around just because she likes to. Polish my horse's saddle. I want to see my face shining in it by morning. And then the granddad, you hear his narration in certain parts of the story, and he says, one day, Buttercup realized that when Wesley was saying, as you wish, because that's all he ever answers is, as you wish, whenever he was saying, as you wish, what he meant was, I love you. And
yeah, so she was completely delusional. Ladies, if a guy just constantly says, as you wish,
there's something wrong with your relationship.
Yeah.
It's a little too BDSM.
Just think about it. Yeah, let's just bring this into the real world, and there was like a guy.
Cary Elwes.
Imagine there was a guy you worked with, and the only thing he ever said to you was "as you wish."
Restraining order.
Yeah, exactly. You call security on him the next day.
It puts the lotion on its skin. As you wish.
I guess it just depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah,
this is true. If
or
you want a nice,
at.
obedient man,
yes, true. And
because if you look like Cary Elwes, I probably wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, the hot farm boy is saying "as you wish" to your every whim. I mean,
sure, I'll
the
take
problem?
it. Stop hitting on me, you male model.
No, okay,
jeez.
You sold me.
But
what if it was a hot farm girl saying that to you? I mean,
would she even really need to say anything, Jason?
Would you say this is too weird? I don't think so.
I doubt it.
As you wish. What? What'd you say? Oh shit! You've been talking this whole time?
Oh wow! I've just been distracted by your intellect.
I want to take a little break from talking about the movie though to talk about how do you two know each other, because we never really do this on the show. We never really talk about the guests as much as we should. Normally that's because they're horrible people. But in this case,
you know who you are.
Yes, you do.
You can't be too sure. We actually worked at Starbucks together for a long time, and we were each one of the few workers who actually did their job and picked up the slack for pretty much everyone else.
And could therefore tolerate each other.
Very much relied on each other, and I really miss that.
I do too. Whenever I see memes and GIFs on Facebook where it's like, when you find out that your best buddy and you are clocked in at the same time at work and you both see them dancing and getting down, I think of you every time I see those.
So are you working Sunday?
Do you guys have any good Starbucks stories?
A million. Too many.
Too many. I was actually telling one the other day about how one of the first times. Is it what?
Was it about Ellen?
No, it was one of the first times you ever spoke to me because I was talking about my giant German Shepherd dog who has this tendency to lean toward my stomach and lean her head on me. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just sort of bend over and grab her around the middle, and that's how I hug her. And Cece, I think, didn't hear the first part where I'm talking about my dog. And so I was like, yeah, so my dog was leaning her head in between my knees, and I just bent down to hug her, and Cece was like, you were doing what with whom? And I was like, my dog. That's how we hug each other. And you were like, I thought you were talking about your kid or something. Oh man, that could have taken a turn.
That's probably not what I thought you were talking about.
I was about to say, I don't think she was thinking.
I don't remember
that.
what you said. I just remember it took a turn.
Father Murphy, no.
Yes. But yeah, we could regale you for hours of the crazy drinks we've had to make for crazy people, and we still remember their names, which we probably shouldn't mention on.
Yeah, we won't mention any names. We won't mention any names.
Did that.
But it is.
Oops.
No last names. You're fine.
Yeah, no last names.
But it is safe to get coffee at Starbucks. Nobody's putting anything in the drinks, anything like that.
No.
Are you being nice?
Oh God.
No, I am always anyone who handles food for me of any kind. Yes. I am the nicest person in the world.
That's wise.
Yeah, that is very, very wise. And Jade and I were always very ethical when it came to that. Mm-hmm. However, I do know.
We've seen it happen.
Some things that have happened from other workers who are not so ethical.
To people who were being rude?
I would make it repeatedly. Regular rudeness happening.
Because we had a woman who would come, and do you remember a double blended
mocha? It wasn't
at
our store.
Yeah, I usually just heard
stories.
Like,
it was a previous store.
Yeah, I've mostly heard stories. If I had seen it happening in front of me, I would have stopped it. But But remember a double blended mocha frappuccino with extra
mm.
ice? Well, the extra ice throws off the consistency of the frappuccino because it's like a milkshake. You have to blend it, and then if you throw in more ice, that's going to make it chunkier. This woman was yelling at a poor barista that we had. It was at the register who was new and just had handed her the drink. It wasn't even the person
she didn't
to
make
the
the
drink.
drink.
But I was the type to intervene, and I was like, ma'am, I'd be happy to help you with that. Did you ask for it to be double blended? And she was like, what is double blended? I was like, just what it sounds like. It goes through the blender twice, and that'll make it smoother. So that way, when you ask for the extra ice, it'll stay cold like you want it to, but it'll be nice and smooth.
You were way nicer than I was.
You would just
That's why I stayed at the bar.
the chai lady would pull up to the screen. Cece would see her and be like, nope, where's Jade? I'm not making this drink.
That only happened once. I got so
awesome.
angry I had to walk off the floor.
Really?
She was incredibly rude, despite the fact that she wanted a chai latte
She wanted
above.
it to be 200 degrees.
Yeah, which the machines.
She wanted it to be boiling.
200?
She wanted you to boil the
Yes,
milk.
because you usually it's a 180.
Did she have a thermometer with her?
No,
She could feel it.
Literally,
Yeah.
if it burned her mouth, she knew it was perfect.
Yeah, and it had to
see
be
her
double
flinch.
cupped. She didn't want a sleeve on it.
Yeah, that's certifiably insane.
And she wanted a specific amount of pumps in the chai. She wanted this size cup with these many pumps of chai
yeah.
and this kind of milk, and it had to be this hot exactly. And it was just
You had to
was
time
crazy.
it just right because if there's a line,
Yeah.
it would sit there on the counter in line.
And if it sits for 30
If it
seconds,
sit-
it's going to cool down.
If it
Yeah.
would sit for more than a minute.
Wow.
It was cold to her.
You have to
Yeah,
wonder
that's
what's going on in
I
somebody's
was not
life.
having a good day. It was really busy. I was like done
Yep.
at that moment in time.
But
And
that's when we would
Jade
switch.
was there to help.
We would switch positions, like because I was due to my
Phrasing.
due
Yes.
to my very podcast official voice, listeners. I was put on the radio quite a bit, and I guess I called it the radio.
But
'cause
she calls it the radio.
I do. I always have.
It's fitting. It's fitting.
Well, you've got a radio anyway. So it doesn't matter.
We
but
could debate everything all day.
We could, but when Cece or I would just get too fed up with whatever we were doing, we would basically just switch. Be like, oh, tag team, I'm
Yeah.
out. You do this job for a little bit, and I'll trade you for a few minutes while everybody cools down. And what was beautiful is we have always had this inside joke that Cece was my work wife because if she was cold, I would go and get her jacket for her from the back. And whenever I walked in the morning, I always had iced macchiato waiting for me because Cece knew that was my drink.
Yep.
And
My work husband.
yep, got to keep the hubs happy. She gets grumpy, but
I don't particularly remember why you're the husband.
I
but-
wasn't
of the
going to go
jacket
anywhere
thing.
near
jacket
that.
thing.
You were
Okay.
cold. You were cold, and I was like, "Well, do you have a jacket in the back?" And you were like, "No, I left it in my car." And I was like, "Well, hang on, I've got a spare one. Let me go get it for you." And I came and just put it on your shoulders, and
I
you're
was like, thanks, hubby.
you were like, "You're so gallant. Oh my goodness!" And I was like, "Okay."
Ferris Bueller, you're my hero. Well, speaking of drinks,
Yes.
did you see that segue?
We did. That was
we're
smooth.
up to the part in the movie with one of my favorite lines, which is the Battle of Wits.
Yes.
Yes, the Battle of Wits has begun.
So why don't you guys tell us about the Battle of Wits?
So I do want to mention, well, first of all, he uses iocane powder in each of the glasses,
which is non-existent.
which
It's
is
a
not
fictional
real thing.
powder. I use it in my cookie recipe.
However, I know some of your listeners are from Australia, and Vizzini talks about how everyone knows iocane powder is from Australia,
Which is riddled with people who are
which
criminals.
Everyone knows
Yes.
is full of criminals.
Well, this is not the first time we brought that up, ironically enough. Australia, we love you, as always.
They're proud.
Thank you for being our most hardcore and biggest listenership, unless Japan has continued nipping on their heels.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Japan's catching up.
They're getting close, guys, so tell your friends, get them involved. But in the very first episode we ever recorded, I made a joke about how the criminals were shipped to Australia. And Jason was like, damn, slam on Australia, but they're our biggest listenership. So,
Yeah.
so I don't think you could
it's
hurt their
confirmed.
feelings.
It's confirmed in this movie.
Yeah.
A fictional
Although-
substance.
It is
How
weird though
dare
because
you,
like
you iocane
Australia and criminals, so it kind of sets when this movie would be taking place.
Yeah, if
You know,
think about
which is odd. I do want to point out throughout this whole sequence or this whole part of the movie where you've got Wesley
Yeah.
in the Zorro outfit,
Yes. And that
And
mask was actually molded for him too.
yeah, well, you know,
was crazy.
hey, it's Cary
He
Elwes.
says it's quite comfortable.
Yeah.
Everyone will be wearing them in the future.
But Claire Underwood does not
Robin
recognize him at all.
Half of his hair
Yes.
and half
Yeah.
of his face are covered.
Yeah, I actually have.
It's
that
been
in my
half a
notes.
decade.
And his little mustache, though.
She has no idea it's him.
Yeah, did he have the mustache in the beginning?
No,
He had no facial hair in the
nope.
beginning.
That was
She can
another
see
thing.
His eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't be more Cary Elwes.
And she does say he had eyes like the sea
Yes.
after a storm, and you can see his very blue eyes. Yeah,
You can hear his voice.
If a
talking to
guy
you.
told you you have eyes like the sea after a storm, you have to admit you'd have to sit there for a few minutes going, what? Wait, after
Come
is
on,
that, is that good?
where's the poet in you?
Is that good?
he doesn't have one. That's why I'm here with the English major skills. But they're both beautiful blonde people who fell in love, but yeah,
And they actually fell in love on the set. Like Robin Wright and Cary Elwes, they would when they were smitten with each other.
he did write that in his book. I don't know about the whole relationship.
Well,
thing.
I
I'd
don't.
have
No,
to
I'm
look
not saying
back.
they had a relationship.
I was about to say, but they both definitely had like little crushes
yeah,
on each
they
other.
they when they would do any scene where they were kissing, they would intentionally figure
Mess
out
up.
ways of screwing up so they could do another take and kiss again.
That's kinda
Yeah.
cute.
It is. It
Well,
really
they do
is.
have very good chemistry.
Yeah.
Here he's angry with her because she is engaged to marry Prince Humperdinck, and because she thinks he's dead. However, in his eyes, death doesn't stop true love.
Well, and he gets a little more specific about it, and this is where book and movie Wesley change a little bit, because in the book, when he's arguing with her about this, in the movie he says, "Oh, well, when you found out that your beloved was dead, did you at least give a week of mourning? Like, did you give it any sort of time to grieve? Like, or did you just got engaged to your prince at the same hour?" Like, and he's mad at her. In the book, he actually slaps her in the face when she says,
wow.
I think he's kind of giving her a
She's a
hard
little
time
bit-
there, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sort of like, Wesley, dude. I mean,
Well, and he
you
goes
know,
to make
man.
it look like he's going to hit her in the movie it's
Yeah.
the same moment exactly in the book as in the movie. She says, "I've loved more deeply than a killer like yourself can ever dream." In the book, he then slaps her in the face.
Yeah.
And says, "Yeah, there are penalties when women lie." And it's the same
He
thing, but they
warns
don't.
her.
Yeah, he
Right,
warns
right.
her.
He's gonna slap her.
He's like, "That was a warning, Highness, where I come from.
You know,
There are
that was
penalties for
that was almost Uma Thurman.
That's what
Really?
I heard
Yeah,
that.
yeah, Buttercup was almost
She
Uma
would have been a
Thurman.
little too tall, I think.
I
No, I don't mean that in an insulting way. She's just so tall.
very specific
So-
criticism.
What? No, she's like Nicole Kidman height, like 5'11"
Yeah,
or something
she's
like
super
that.
tall.
So I wonder how that would have.
Have you ever
worked.
seen Top Gun? They can work around
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I've seen the Avengers. I've seen what they've done with Robert
Yeah.
Downey Jr.'s shoes, so
Yeah.
that he's the same height
Yeah.
as Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah.
One
they-
of my
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. One of my favorite lines from that scene is where she says, "You mock my pain," and he says, "Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something."
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
one of my
that
favorite
that
lines
actually.
of the whole movie.
Yeah, I think that might be the best line in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Well, Cary always says in his book that that's one of the most popular
Yeah.
quotes for him to be requested. Like, "Oh, will you say this to me?" Like, and this is funny too. This is where the movie differentiates from the book as well, is when they both fall down the very steep ravine, and he yells, "As you wish," and she realizes oh my God,
And
it's
then she
Wesley.
just tumbles down
Just
after
flings
him.
herself down.
Yeah.
Well, in the book, she tries her best to piece her way down there, but ends up slipping
Yeah,
and falling
yeah.
anyway. In the movie, she just
Yeah,
flings herself.
she just goes for it, you know?
Hey,
Yeah.
but
Well, she's rather dumb in the book.
yes.
Rather
Oh
dumb.
man,
They talk about it
she's
extensively.
she's
Which-
kind of useless in the movie, but she's out and out dumb in
Yeah.
the book.
You know, and let's talk about the book, specifically the author, William Goldman.
Yes, it was not written by S. Morgenstern as
No.
they announce in the movie.
I was
Yeah.
so confused the first time I read that book.
Yep.
You know, Goldman, he wrote when you, and I think this has got to be the mark of a good writer, because this is a great movie. It's one of everybody's favorite movies, or I don't know. There's probably somebody out there who doesn't like it.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
No, like throughout all of Hollywood, this was one of the most difficult movies to have it get to
Oh
production.
yeah, everybody.
because
Trudeau wanted to make this movie.
It was Robert Redford wanted to make
fighting
this
over it.
movie.
Yeah.
Like everybody, and it just never got off the ground because there was just too much going on.
But
Like I
here's-
said, it checks so many boxes that it's just impossible to encapsulate
yeah, but
everything.
two other movies written by. Now, and think about specifically talking about Robert Redford. Okay, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, same writer. Marathon Man, which is one of my top
Dustin
10
Hoffman.
favorite movies ever.
Yeah.
Same author.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to think, Butch Cassidy, Marathon Man, and Princess Bride, those, if you said those are written by three totally different people, that would
Sure.
make more sense to me than to say that one guy actually came up with all three
these
of
concepts.
these.
Well, with Princess Bride specifically, Goldman wrote it for his daughters. He
Right,
asked
yeah.
them what they wanted, and I think it was something akin, like one daughter said she wanted a story about a giant or a pirate, and one of them wanted a story about a princess, so he just blended it together.
Mm-hmm.
And to that end, like now that we're getting to the fire swamp, just one of some of the best scenes in the entire movie. We get to the point where Buttercup's dress first sets on fire, but when they first get in there before they encounter any trouble, Wesley has that funny line where he goes, "It's not that bad. Well, I'm not saying I'd like to build a summer home here, but the trees are actually quite lovely." And she's just looking at him like he's nuts.
Oh, that castle is the worst in ever. With its
Darkness. But so a big part of that is he said Rob Reiner wasn't a big micromanagement kind of a guy, but Cary's English accent led him to say summer home here, and he was putting the emphasis on the word home. So, and Rob would keep stopping and cutting. He's like, "No, Cary, I want you to say summer home, not summer home." And so he was like, it took me like 5 takes to say, "I'm not saying I'd like to build a summer home here, but the trees are actually quite lovely." So it took him a while to get that emphasis. But other than that, apparently Rob Reiner was pretty cool about it.
Well, and I think Goldman was on set because
Yes, when her dress caught
on fire, yeah, and he was so wrapped up in the performance that
even though he wrote it.
Yeah, he screwed up the take and yelled, "Oh my God, her dress is on fire!"
He screwed up multiple takes because with these are the first scenes that they shot. Were in the fire swamp. They started shooting the movie there because it was such an elaborate set, and they had to have little people as the ROUSs to wrestle with Cary Elwes, and it was just a very involved set with all the trees and the lightning sand, which they call it snow sand, I think, in the book. But the way that they did,
same thing.
Yeah, either way. But when Robin set on fire, Goldman freaked out, even though he wrote the book and the screenplay. He knew it was going to happen, and he watched the stunt doubles go through it with Cary and Robin, and he was like, "Okay, I know this is going to happen. All right, whatever." But the first take he ever ruined, he was actually like kind of praying because they started shooting, and it was an action sequence, and it might have been the dress on fire. I think it was the dress on fire, but they could hear this sort of like on the mics, and you pick up every little sound on a movie set, which is why they say quiet on the set. You've got to be dead silent unless you're specifically supposed to speak. But they finally looked around and they were like, "Goldman, what are you doing? Like, we can hear you on the microphones." So, and then when her dress caught fire, because the whole thing is that her dress was it was flame retardant, and they actually put chemicals on Robin Wright to make sure that she didn't burn her legs and stuff. And she had flame retardant clothes underneath the dress and all that. But Goldman was just freaking out the entire time to the point where he removed himself from the set. He left after a little while. He came back, but he was like, "Oh, I'm going to ruin the movie. I've got to go." But then he came back. So it was just, because it was the perfect story, and it had so many false starts in Hollywood, and it was close to his heart as the story that he wrote for his little girls.
He ended up he sold the rights, and it sort of languished, and it was shopped around, and there were several abortive attempts to make it, and he actually ended up buying the rights to the movie back.
Yep, he did.
Yeah, just to I think it was like causing him like stress and anxiety.
Because it kept and it was going to have a different spin with Robert Redford than it would have had.
Oh, can you imagine the Robert Redford version?
Oh God, I can't.
I can imagine being a writer and thinking about how these different directors are going to portray your book.
Right. Well, that's why if you do that, and as somebody who's written the book, and I talked with somebody about that once, they were like, "Well, what if somebody wanted to make a movie about it?" And I'd say, "Yeah, go for it." Well, what if they were going to completely change it and everything? I'm like, look, until you're Stephen King, here's the reality.
Yeah, you don't get any input on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was. Yeah,
or J.K.
We have another Harry Potter fan in the studio today. Thank goodness.
Well, no, but even with J.K., I mean, you sell that many books, you're established. You got a hot property,
Exactly.
But I mean, you got to just sit back and say, okay, I'm going to trust the director and the actors, and
with Rob Reiner, I think you can because he's got good taste.
Yeah, because he made 3 other good movies.
Yeah.
So this scene where she falls into the quicksand or lightning sand,
it doesn't matter. Yeah, they know what you're talking about.
I used to, as a child, try to hold my breath for that entire time. That
Me
she was in
too!
it.
I do that
And
with
I
so many
never
movies.
could. I never
your
could.
parents found you passed out in
it's
front of
a-
a TV frequently.
Cece, what are you
been
doing?
watching Princess
Bride
Bride
again.
Hey, that reminds me of David Carradine.
Oh my god.
No, see, I'm not going to do it.
Don't.
No,
Hey,
I'm
I
not-
need
I'm
you to
not.
go the entire episode without saying, I'm not going to say it.
Here's the third danger of the fire swamp: the ROUS,
Yes.
rodent of unusual size.
Yes, because I couldn't understand that when I was a kid. Because when she's like, "What about the RUSs?" and she says it so fast,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't. And he goes, "Rodents of unusual size? I don't think they exist." And then he gets tackled by one,
Yeah.
which is there's a great story behind that. So the stunt man who's in the rat suit right now, his name is Danny. And
Of course it
the
is.
night before they shot this scene,
old Danny.
they
It's
all
not Ian.
no, it's not Steven. It's Danny. But yeah, so he's in this big like foam and rubber rat suit, and he's got to wrestle with Cary always on the set. And the problem was that the night before, the cast had gone out drinking, and Danny stayed out late and got pulled over for a DUI.
Oh my god.
And so he was late on the set the next day. Somebody had to come and bail him out, but they were like, "Okay, Cary, I mean, you're gonna have to wrestle with this fake rubber rat if we can't get Danny on the scene and quickly enough."
Well, yeah, and the cop wouldn't believe him.
Yeah, he was.
The cop
I
wouldn't believe
play a
it.
giant
Yeah.
rat
Yeah.
in a movie.
No,
I
that's-
gotta get out.
No, listen,
he was
mate,
like,
mate, listen, I swear.
Because he was on set talking to Rob Reiner. He's like, "No, Governor, the policeman just wouldn't believe me." It's just, and he was trying to explain the whole story. He
Just
says,
imagining the cop.
"Yeah," and he was
Hello,
like-
hello. What's all this then?
Like, I've
Well,
heard
because
some
his,
stories.
Danny's car was confusing to him too, because he had gears for his hands, so because his feet obviously couldn't reach the pedals, and he's swerving a little bit because he's had a few pints, but he gets pulled over for drunk driving and then gets thrown in jail. But going back to the lightning sand before we move too fast past this, they did several takes where Robin Wright, because there was a trap door underneath the sand that Peter Diamond and Bob Anderson, who were also the stunt coordinators, not just the fencing guys, they would release the trap door and catch Robin, and there were like cushions and stuff, but there was also cement. So,
Why? I could have solved that problem.
Well-
don't put the cement in there.
just pillows.
And also, those big spikes, lose them.
Yeah, don't smear them with fecal matter either.
Oh, dude.
Trying to
You
make
get
it as
infections that way.
uncomfortable as
You bring up
possible.
fecal matter and I'm not supposed to say autoerotic asphyxiation? How is that fair?
Where's Adam Brown when you need him? God. Anyway,
You want me to tell you?
no, probably not. But
Squanch.
I didn't need that visual ever. I'm moving right along.
I'm super glad I don't know what's happening.
No, you are, believe me. Anyway, so the lightning sand, Cary did a couple of takes where he just drops in after Robin Wright. He steps feet first in, and they kept looking over the shot, and he was like, "Look, guys, that's just not very swashbuckling. That's not very pirate." He's like, "That's not a hero thing to do. I should dive in after her head first." And Peter Diamond and Bob Anderson weren't having that. They're like, "No, you could break your neck if the trapdoor doesn't release in time." Like, we all know what happened on The Wizard of Oz. The Wicked Witch of the West got third-degree burns from the fireball. When I'll get you my pretty and your little dog, too, because the trapdoor didn't release in
Also
time.
known as the good old days of filmmaking.
Seriously. But so he saw the stunt coordinator do the dive once. And then Cary always did it himself, and everything went smoothly, but they were freaking out. They were just like, "Oh my God, this is the first stuff we're shooting. We're going to kill the star of the movie if he
Yeah.
breaks his neck on this trapdoor."
And then after that, somebody went, "Should we have been filming that?" Just kidding.
He doesn't choke himself on purpose like David Carradine. His neck isn't practiced. So- That's a compliment, Cary. Believe me.
And here he sees the six-fingered man. The
Christopher
man
Guest.
Christopher Guest, who I
Count Rugen.
never knew that was Christopher Guest until I was
He
much
looks so
older.
different.
A
Yeah.
testament to his acting.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's a chameleon.
Yeah, because he was in one of the other of the 4 good movies Rob Reiner made.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which is?
Spinal Tap,
There you
this,
go.
Spinal Tap.
When Harry Met Sally, which I think was the very next
Who was
movie.
he in Harry
What?
Met Sally?
No, I'm just talking about the 4 movies.
Oh,
Rob
I
Reiner.
was
yeah,
like,
no,
excuse me?
yeah.
Christopher Guest wasn't in
He
Harry
might
Met
have had a
Sally.
big part. And A Few Good Men, and that's it.
I love this
All right.
part, the pit of despair.
Yeah.
Don't even think about trying to escape.
My brother and I enjoy doing that voice to each other during the holiday season.
Like you do.
Like you do.
Well, it's fun to torment your your siblings.
Well, it's like how young Adam mentioned that he does the It clown voice to his girlfriend. He's like, I memorized all the lines in It that have a name in them, and then I would just substitute her name in and say the lines with his voice. And I was like, and y'all are still together, huh? That's exciting for you.
Well, he did have that black eye when he was on the show.
Oh,
last
that's
time.
right.
Yeah.
She must have knocked him around.
Yeah.
But my brother will come up to me, the pits of despair. And to this day, my mom still doesn't know what we're doing.
Isn't that amazing?
It's funny she'll play
after
that
so
game.
many
No.
years, as a parent, that is literally the level of I don't care. Because I could do that with my dad. My dad.
Come on, Janet. Gee.
I have not been paying attention.
What is that? One of those Star Wars things?
She'll do the rhyming thing with you with Mandy Patinkin's last name, but she doesn't know the Pit of Despair guy. I love the level of
Because she likes
grew up
Mandy
in the-
Patinkin.
She grew up in the
Okay.
60s.
Yeah.
She-
Smoked a lot of weed, did a lot of acid.
There's some memory loss there.
Don't you talk about Miss Janet that way.
She's a natural blonde. These are the excuses I give her.
All right.
I love it.
You know the story.
We just won't tell her where to find this episode.
She'd love it.
Do you know the story with the albino with his eyes?
Tell me.
Oh.
Yeah, he didn't tell the prop people or the makeup people that he was horribly allergic to the lenses.
Oh no.
Because he just, he was a trooper,
Yeah.
But
It's like Andre.
he
Oh,
was in
no.
horrible agony doing this movie.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but fair
So
play because you
everyone
can't
was in
tell.
pain during this movie.
Unlike in Wizard of Oz, because Jed Clampett from the Beverly Hillbillies was supposed to be the Tin Man, but he was allergic to the paint.
Interesting.
Couldn't do it. Yeah.
And that horse, that one horse was allergic to Jello.
Yeah,
And
and,
so he
that's
was-
all they
that
painted
was-
him with.
Yeah, but he went on to be Mr. Ed though, so it was a good career move for him.
He was
Is that-
okay.
Is that
Yeah.
true or are you making that
Not
up?
making it
No,
up.
the horse of a different color is white, and Mr. Ed's Palomino. They're very different. Come on,
It's
Cece.
either like a really,
Okay,
it's,
Tina.
it's either like a really good dad joke or like a really interesting fact.
Speaking of which, we need to have the illustrious Morgan Rogers back to discuss The Wizard of Oz. That's his favorite movie.
Only if
Of all
we
time.
talk about college, that Dark Side of the Moon, and weed.
He won't know anything about those. He's
I-
Mr. Rogers. Like
You
what?
you leave the room and he'll tell me.
Oh,
the
okay, is
real
that what-
stories? Yeah.
Dad, don't listen to this nonsense. He doesn't. He'll tune into Ferris Bueller. He doesn't listen to any of the other episodes. But yeah. Oh, and you get this good fake out, which
Yep.
devastated, I think, a lot of us as a kid. So, all right. So what happens is Wesley and Buttercup get rounded up on by Prince Humperdinck and Count Rugen at the other side of the fire swamp, and they get separated because Robin Wright, sacrifices herself back to the prince, says she'll marry him if he'll spare Wesley's life, which he says he will, but then he doesn't aim to.
Yeah.
course
He actually
not.
doesn't at
Wow,
all.
Yeah.
She's very naive.
She is, and that's why I say in the movie she's more like kind of useless and naive than she is
But
just out and out
sweet.
dumb. But yeah, and she's very sweet.
You know who Goldman wanted to play her?
Who?
Carrie Fisher.
Really?
Yep. He said Carrie Fisher.
That would have been a different
he said
movie
Carrie
altogether.
Fisher, Carrie Fisher would have been the perfect Buttercup.
Really?
That's what he said.
Huh.
Now, I mean, that
Carrie
would-
Fisher's almost too much of a strong, independent woman to play someone so helpless.
That's true. And also, too, she would have done half the movie in a British accent and half the movie in some sort of
no.
weird
Easy
New Yorkie
now.
accent.
Easy now.
Who are you angering by saying that?
No, it's true. It's true.
A lot of people. Well, it's funny because when Cary Elwes and Robin Wright met each other, he's actually English. His family's English. And
Because he can speak with an English accent.
unlike other Robin Hoods. But Robin Wright's stepdad evidently was English because she's American, and so they kind of bonded over that. He's like, well, my family's from the UK, so like, how do you know how to speak with an English accent? I guess because in the 80s that just wasn't a given. And she was like, oh, my stepfather and we bonded when I was a kid over Monty Python. And in the book, he says the sweetest thing where he's just like, oh my God, a beautiful girl who can do an English accent and can quote Monty Python. Does it get any better than that?
No, I mean, yeah, they were apparently totally taken with each other doing
That's
this
what
movie.
Chris
Yeah.
Sarandon said the same thing. He's like, I'm pretty sure everybody was kind of smitten with Robin Wright. He was like, she's just so beautiful and sweet and kind.
But
and
she was destined for Sean Penn.
Ew. Robin, what happened?
Yeah, remember when she was Robin Wright Penn?
Yes.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
remember those dark days and
Yeah.
we try not to remember them.
I-
Like Spider-Man 3.
It is
uh.
just impossible though for me to look at her in this and think that's the same
House of
person who plays
Cards.
Claire Underwood, and what a difference a bad haircut makes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It actually says in the credits in this movie, introducing.
Oh,
Robin
really?
Wright.
Oh,
Yeah, so this must have been her her big break.
It was her
Yeah.
first movie. That's why I mentioned in the beginning of the episode that Fred Savage was more famous than she was at the time. because this was not
Right,
his first
right.
film, and
Yeah.
it was hers. Whereas, and this manor or like sort of castle that they're in right now, Cary Elwes had shot a former movie. It has the word lady in it. I can't remember what it's titled at the moment. But the family that owned it was...
Does it also have parts in it?
Yes.
Okay.
Might be a different movie than you're thinking. But the family that owned it from, way back when, because it had been in the family forever,
Lord Huffington.
it had kind of a romantic history where there were these star-crossed lovers, and they went out into the woods to go meet each other and go off and live their life together. So it has this romantic history.
But they're British, so they toned it down a little bit.
But you're British, so scale it down a bit. I want to work in a sewer then. But the family that owned it was actually living in it, kind of White House style. They lived in just part of it, and they would rent it out and let people use it for movies
They were
and
probably
stuff.
flat ass broke by
I
this
would
point.
imagine it's very Winthrop
Yeah.
Manor, Bobby.
Yeah, the 17th Earl of Throffington had just drank all the money away. Yeah,
Hey, that mead is difficult to create.
But
Oh, and this is a great line. What is Prince Humperdinck? So he has promised to return Wesley to his ship, because you find out in the Fire Swamp that Wesley wasn't killed by the Dread Pirate Roberts because he is the Dread Pirate Roberts. And you get the whole story about how he was taken under the wing of the Dread Pirate Roberts, who almost killed him. But he argued and said, please, I need to live for true love. And so he says, I think it was the please that caught his memory, because he let me live to be his valet. And he'd be like, all right, Wesley, we'll try this for a day. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I won't. Have a good night. I'll probably kill you in the morning. And he's like, for 3 years, he said that. Good night, Wesley. Good work. Sleep well. I'll most likely kill you in the morning. But then eventually he gets handed the title of Dread Pirate Roberts and becomes the Dread Pirate Roberts. So then he gets taken captive by Prince Humperdinck, and now he's in the pit of despair.
which is surprisingly neat and tidy.
Well,
You know?
it was actually a zoo in the
Yeah.
book.
Oh, it
That's
was.
right.
Yes.
Oh,
That's
okay.
right.
Because Prince Humperdinck is not just a tracker in the book.
a hunter.
He's a master hunter. So he has all of these animals brought over from different continents and whatnot, so that he can hunt them. Elephants and tigers and everything.
See,
you can
I didn't make
imagine.
any joke right there about did he use bait, and I didn't. You see, that's growth. That's growth. See?
You've already said what you're.
What
gonna
did I
say.
say? What did I say?
I've said it
Without
once. I've said it once on the podcast, and that's really I'm looking to drop anchor on that one episode. But nice
Here's
subtle,
his
nice
great
subtle
torture
pun for you there.
machine.
Yeah. So we have the machine, and you don't really know what the machine is. So they're torturing Wesley, and the whole deal of it is that in the book, especially, Wesley's like, "Oh, I can cope with torture. That's fine." He just thinks about Buttercup, about her whispering in his ear, "I love you, Wesley. I love you," and that's how he distracts himself while they're burning his fingers and cutting him with knives and doing all. They don't really mess around with all of that in the movie. They just skip right to the machine that literally sucks your life out of you.
Yes, somehow.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the dynamics
Some kind of
or the
water
science.
torture.
Can we get Neil deGrasse Tyson, paging Neil deGrasse Tyson? Can we get you on the
Oh
phone?
no, he would dissect.
He's
the
not
crap
returning
out
my
of this,
phone
and
calls
that would not
anymore.
be-
Well, you have been slamming him when you get drunk and tweet at him that much, Jason. It's gonna happen.
You know.
He's taken out a restraining order.
Yeah, clean up after your damn dog. That's all I'll say.
Did anybody? Okay, this is gonna seem random, but I'm going somewhere
Oh,
with it.
whoa, no.
Never.
Stay tuned.
Are y'all familiar with the show Ah, Real Monsters from Nickelodeon?
Yes.
Okay,
No.
the scream that Wesley emits when he's being tortured on the machine is totally from Ah, Real Monsters. I haven't verified it, but when he's just shaking back and forth and it's just that scream that can be heard throughout the entire kingdom, I'm pretty sure they use at least part of that for the intro to Our Real Monsters.
Well,
Or-
screams, yeah.
Really?
I mean, screams get reused. You know,
Oh, in Star
That's
Wars,
true.
that one scream
Wilhelm
whenever somebody's
scream.
yeah, when somebody's falling off a building or off of Jabba's floating palace or whatever.
You
yeah,
can't waste a good scream. You know, you got to reuse it whenever you can.
Screams are expensive. We're not going to film one. Go out and find one we can use.
God. But yeah,
We
so,
paid for the scream. We're going to film the scream.
But yeah, sorry to interrupt you there, Jason, but I got to go back before we get too far away from this point in the movie, because I was going to say one of Prince Humperdinck's. He's not the most quotable person in the movie by far, because he's the bad guy. We don't like him. But when they're going to torture Wesley down in the pit of despair, you find out that Count Rugen's first name is Tyrone. First of all,
wrote that down too in my notes. I was like, his name is
Yep.
Tyrone? I never realized that.
Well, that's
he's
like
so
when I was a
menacing.
kid and I found out Jethro was a biblical name.
yeah, it is.
Like,
And
no,
you're like,
really?
Beverly
They had
Hillbillies?
rednecks
Like,
back then
that's a
too?
redneck name.
But Prince Humperdinck does have this great line because Count Rugen's like, "Oh, I'm starting Wesley on the Machine tonight. Do you want to come and watch?" And he goes, "Tyrone, you know how much I love watching you work, but I've got my country's 500th anniversary to plan, my wedding to arrange, my wife to murder, and Gilda to frame for it. I'm swamped." And that, to me, that's the most memorable thing that Chris Sarandon says in the entire movie. It's great.
It definitely is.
I like. I think my favorite little comedic line though is whenever they are asking what's his name for the gate key.
I have no gate key.
Tear his arms off.
Oh, you mean this gate key? That one is great.
I love it.
Well, and the Prince does have one other line that I do just remember off the top of my head, where they're at the top of the cliffs of insanity, and he's tracking the fencing, and finding out where she went and what direction the princess is, and they're hunting her down. And he says, "She's alive, or she was an hour ago. If she is otherwise, when I find her, I shall be very put out." Yes, it's just like, wow, dude, because you do come to find with that quote, and a couple of other moments with it. It was Prince Humperdinck who arranged for Vicini and Fezzik and Inigo to kidnap the princess, to frame the country of Gilder for her death, because she's such a popular... She's very Princess Lady Di. The people love her, and if Gilder kills her, then the country will support him to go to war with them. Florin will support a war against Gilder. So you find out the prince is just a tool and a half.
Yeah, he's John Q. bad guy.
Exactly.
I find it funny that he and Vicini must have bonded on their arrogance, because Vicini talks about how intelligent he is.
Oh, yes.
But ultimately loses his life with a switcheroo.
In a battle of wits. but it's just, look over there.
What can that be?
What? Where? And it's funny, in the battle of wits, in the book, Wesley's actually a little bit nervous, because Vicini, I think, is a little bit smarter, whereas Buttercup's a little bit dumber. So everybody's a little bit different, which happens. And at one point, Vicini's going through all those points where, well, you are obviously strong, so maybe you're relying on your strength to save you. So I can clearly not choose the wine in front of you, but you bested my standard, and that means you've studied. So during each of those little points, Goldman has these punctuating moments where he's like, Wesley was starting to sweat a little bit. Wesley was getting a little bit nervous, and so that happened a little bit more in the book. But whereas in the movie, he's just exuding confidence, and he's like, "Oh, you're just stalling now, and you're trying to trick me into giving away something. It won't work." Like, it's just it's a whole different demeanor.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. You can't, in an adaptation, there's so much you just can't do.
No,
when it comes to stuff like that,
and you want to like like the main guy. If he had hit Buttercup in the movie, I wouldn't have been able to get over that.
No, that wouldn't have been cool.
That would have bugged me.
It takes a certain type of filmmaker to really make something work as a film,
right?
An adaptation.
Fezzik. Two people that I saw who were considered for his role. One,
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. That would make sense. And the reason they didn't get him was because they had considered him whenever he was a nobody, but by the time this movie was actually made, he cost too much.
Yep.
But
he was the one who recommended Andre the Giant, actually.
Yeah, and the other person who apparently was interested in it but couldn't do it because of scheduling conflicts was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Shut the front door.
Yeah. That's what I heard. I haven't asked Kareem,
I'd have to verify that. You know what, listeners? I'm going to look into this and put it in the show notes.
Seriously, do that. Yeah.
Yes. He and my dad belong to the Tall Guy Club.
Yes.
My dad just makes it at a mere 6'4", whereas Kareem is something like 7'1". He's ridiculous, but he's so slender. You don't look at Kareem and think giant,
right? Yeah,
back then though, he would have been more muscular when he was a younger man.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you watch Airplane, he still looks pretty skinny.
Yeah, he was a very slender man.
And he was great in Airplane. He was fantastic.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. He was on Scrubs too. He's made he was on New Girl as well.
Yeah.
Where he hated the DJ that he was working with at a radio station. He's had an interesting career, considering.
So this scene that just passed...
Was that the castle from Robin Hood just then? It looks like the exact same shot. Sorry, not to interrupt you.
Well, they've only got 2 or 3 castles. They just always dress them up differently.
I thought Europe is where the history came from.
Right?
Where the castles
This building
are.
is over 50 years
old.
Never waste a good shot of a castle.
No.
It's like the Screams. But the scene that just passed, Princess Buttercup just finds out that or just realizes that she'd been naive, and he never sent the ships.
Okay,
to
we didn't
go
mention
bring
that.
Wesley back.
Yes, because she
happened.
threatens to kill herself, and there's a great story behind that too. So when Chris Sarandon first read for Rob Reiner and Bill Goldman, that was the first scene they had him read. He didn't read anything else as Prince Humperdinck. The line he read for them, or the scene that he read was, "Please consider me as an alternative to suicide." Are we agreed? And he was like, I played it totally straight, and Rob Reiner just like slapped his knee laughing. And he was like, this is our guy. And he's like, the next thing I knew, I was on a plane to go be this Prince Humperdinck guy. But you're right. He does tell her, because Buttercup comes in threatening to commit suicide if she has to marry the prince, because she says she's in love with Wesley. He promises, he's like, write 4 copies of a letter. I'll send my 4 fastest ships. We'll find him. And if he wants you, great. But if not, please don't kill yourself and just marry me instead. So, but that leads into the scene that you're
See, that's what I
talking
said to my
about.
wife.
Hi, Elaine.
Yeah.
But she talks about how it doesn't matter, that she and Wesley are joined by the bonds of love.
Wesley
and
will come for me anyway.
you cannot break that, not with 1,000 swords, and you cannot track that,
Not with 1,000 bloodhounds. Yep.
And she gives the ultimate insult right here. Not only does she call him a coward, but she says, I say you are a coward, but you are the slimiest weakling ever to crawl the earth.
Yep.
And
I would not
says,
say such things if I were you.
That's another
And
line
I
my
know
brother and I
Sean
say to
Penn.
each other.
She didn't yet. That
Oh,
was
that's
the
true.
thing.
She didn't. Yeah.
The way he says it, my brother and I repeat that to each other on a yearly basis.
I
At
can see
some
that.
point,
I would not
Now-
say such things if I were you.
The sequence coming up though, the scene with Billy Crystal and
Carol Kane.
Carol Kane.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Carol
Miracle
Kane.
Max.
Yeah.
Run! Run,
Run,
Lillian!
Lillian! I love her.
She's amazing.
Oh, shit.
Oh, but before we get to that, we're at this great moment because, like I said, these moments aren't in the books with the grandpa and the grandson. You see the grandson getting more and more invested in the whole story as they go on. Because at the beginning of the movie, he's playing his little King Griffey like baseball game or whatever he's doing, and he just can't be less interested in a book. But as it goes on, when they get to the Shrieking
he's
Eels,
got a Commodore 64.
he's
needs
got
a
stuff
book?
to do. It's
Yeah,
the 80s.
come
so he
on.
says, I'll try and stay awake.
Yeah, he's like, oh, and at the first, he's just like, oh, they're kissing again. Do we have to hear the kissing part? And just as things mount in suspense and intensity, when Buttercup's about to be eaten by the Shrieking Eels, which are sharks in the book, I don't know why Goldman changed that. I couldn't find that out. But he goes, wait, Grandpa, wait, hold on. And he starts freaking out, and he's like, do you want me to read this? You're getting really excited. But then when they say Wesley's dead, because he's been tortured, because Prince Humperdinck finds that Buttercup really loves Wesley, and in a fit of jealousy and rage, he kills Wesley with the machine. And then Fred Savage is just like, Grandpa, wait. Fezzik didn't say he's dead, right? I mean, he's the hero. He can't die. And he's like, maybe we should just continue this later. And he's like, no, he's like, who gets Humperdinck? And he's like, somebody's got to kill Humperdinck. Is it Inigo? Who? And he's just getting all worked up. And he's like, yeah, we need to finish this later. And he's like, no, I got this.
I think if you let us, Jade and I could probably quote the entire movie.
Yes,
Good.
and that's exactly why I'm not going to let you.
Oh, the listeners would love it.
Yeah, I think there's a lawsuit, or so there's got to be
Oh,
something.
right,
if
rights
we just,
or something.
our performance.
I'm paraphrasing.
yeah.
Calm down.
No,
But-
Billy Crystal.
Yeah, we just come to that. Miracle Max.
Yeah. Do you know who he had the makeup people base his makeup on?
Who?
Mel Brooks.
No, he brought a picture of his damn dog.
Mel Brooks would appreciate that joke. You know he would.
No, he brought a picture of his grandmother.
What?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
He brought a picture of his grandmother, and so because he either hired the makeup people or he specified who it was supposed to be, and he said, "Here, this is what I want you to make me," and it worked.
It's
And
perfect.
it was a big deal that they cast him. Apparently, Carol Kane, they approached her afterwards when they knew that they had Billy Crystal on board. And she had her own projects going on. She had done Taxi, and I think she'd been on Saturday Night Live, unless I'm,
I think, yeah,
Maybe.
pretty sure, yeah.
or maybe he was the one on Saturday Night Live.
I think
and
she was on SCTV, wasn't she?
I think she was.
Yeah, I think I'm
yeah,
mixing them
yeah.
up. Thank you. So she found out that Billy Crystal was going to play his wife, and she wasn't even really that concerned with the story. She's back then. you didn't really mess around with the role too much. When you heard that you were going to get to work with somebody like Billy Crystal, you just said yes.
Yeah.
So she immediately signed on when she found out that she was supposed to be Valerie to Miracle Max.
Yeah.
And very smart, because she stands out just as much as he does.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well,
She's so great.
and that's Carol Kane. I mean, she can be in a role.
I'm not a witch, I'm your wife.
Okay, down.
Do we bury the needle? Sorry.
the little red light.
All right,
remember?
sorry.
Yeah.
That means we're getting too loud. Well,
no-
I'm getting too loud, and you're not doing anything wrong.
No, but it is amazing. You know, we have somebody like Billy Crystal, and then you have another actor who just totally holds her own with Billy Crystal.
Well, because she's not nearly on his level of fame, at least at this point, I don't think.
She's never been.
But she never.
famous as Billy
I mean,
Crystal.
if you know who Carol Kane is, you love her and appreciate her. Right, Lillian. I'll
You
never
probably
get it.
recognize
But-
her, but not necessarily know her name.
Yeah. But I've got to point this out, though. It takes a man's man to let another guy put a bellows clamp in your mouth.
No, I'm telling you, when I watched that, the first thing I thought of was I would have just gagged and thrown up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Couldn't do it.
Because it sort of makes sense, I guess. He's like, okay, he's trying to give him resuscitation. Great. Not mouth to mouth. I'm just going to stick this big wooden object in your mouth instead, Cary Elwes. Deal with it.
I love that her name is Valerie. Who is
Valerie and Max.
Valerie and Max were Goldman's parents. That
I
was
think
their
something
name.
like
yeah,
that,
they're named
yeah.
after somebody's
That
parents.
explains the
Yeah.
bickering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he's got, in the 5 minutes that Billy Crystal is in this movie, he says some of the most quotable stuff, too. He goes, there's true love. There's nothing better than that, except for a nice MLT. Mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich when the mutton is nice and lean. They're so perky. I love that. And some of the quotes that are so great about this movie have nothing to do with the story.
Yes.
like the MLT thing, you're like, okay, where did that come
Yeah,
from?
what?
Well, and you can see Mandy Patinkin really working not to laugh.
Yeah.
You know.
Chocolate coating makes it go down easier.
It is Billy Crystal and Carol Kane. I mean,
Oh, at their finest. And they're both young people during this movie.
Oh, yeah.
But the makeup on them is just stunning.
Well, I mean, the next movie was When Harry
have
Met
fun
Sally.
storming the castle.
You know, so-
Think
yeah.
it'll work? It would take a miracle. Bye-bye.
And that's it. They're out of the movie, and they're
That's
the
it.
most memorable characters.
Yeah.
They're who everybody remembers.
Well, because this was when it wasn't his first movie, but Cary Elwes was only 23 when they shot this movie. And it was his first big break. It
Yeah.
wasn't introducing Cary Elwes, but
Yeah.
still. And he was just like, there are all these really professional, intimidating actors with all this amazing experience.
Like Andre the Giant.
Yes. But in his book, he writes about this moment when they're about to storm the castle. They're up on the wall, and they wake Wesley up, and he's talking about their liabilities versus their assets, and what do we have, what can we do, what's the plan to get Humperdinck. And apparently Andre the Giant emitted the most epic flatulence that any of them have ever. It was like the 50-year scream. It was heard throughout the entire kingdom. And he was
Nice.
like, I'm not exaggerating when I say it went on for minutes. And it apparently broke down everyone, the crew, the cast, everybody, to where they couldn't get back in the moment.
If you're gonna be loud, you gotta be proud.
Thank you, Gene. That wasn't me. That was you. But at one point, they kept getting the giggles in every subsequent take. And so eventually, Cary had to take a walk with Rob Reiner. And he was like, oh, my God, I just can't get over that. And Rob was like, well, just flip it, Cary. And he goes, what do you mean? He said, well, think about how much Andre's had to face, where even something like that, or if you did that, another actor would just be like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll get over it. He was like, with Andre, everybody, it stopped the whole production. And Cary was like, that made me feel so terrible. And then
No,
he was like, it
seriously.
snapped me
Yeah.
into being serious. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, all right, I got this now. And he even went to Andre and apologized. He was like, hey, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have laughed that hard. And he goes, oh, no worries. Everybody laughs when I do that. And he was like, that's how good of a guy that Andre the Giant was.
Yeah.
Because even though I was the one who probably hurt his feelings, he went out of the way to make me feel less bad about doing it.
Well, he's French, and everyone knows that the French are very polite people.
He Historically, yes.
No, actually, I thought
almost-
you were going to say that they're very
Flatulent?
okay with
Flatulent people?
because that would be more true.
You know, I'm just going to block France from the website. Might as well. It'll save on server traffic. They're not coming
Say,
anyway.
We got Australia and Japan. Bring it on, internet troll in France.
Yeah.
That'll be his army.
Yeah. Yeah. Aw.
Oh, we discovered we have an internet troll, and he specifically hates me. So
Yes.
Oh, wow.
coming to you
What
from
an
his
honor.
coming to you from his mother's basement amongst his figurines.
Yes.
He wants you to know how much he hates Darth Jader.
Yes,
And she is
yes.
shaking
And-
in her Imperial Stormtrooper boots.
Yes,
So-
and you know exactly who you are.
Oh, to have the time to
I
troll.
know. Can you imagine?
Seriously.
When was the last time you commented on a podcast or
I'll barely even
something?
comment on
I
my
mean,
friend's Facebook.
Barely even listen to
Yeah.
an entire podcast.
Well, ours are particularly long episodes, so
By the
with
way,
that I can understand.
By the way, please subscribe and leave a comment in the comment section.
But nice ones, or else you'll make Jason and Adam mad like you did last time.
I'm fine.
Thanks, buddy. Way to come to my defense. But so yeah, they do have that great scene up on the wall, and they're listing their liabilities and their assets.
And then an eclipse happens.
yes, it suddenly
It's
gets
just like,
very dark out.
Bam! It's dark.
No, they sneak off, and at
It's
one
called a time lapse.
And didn't Max say it
Thought it
was
was the
going to
time
take
warp.
15 minutes?
no, they said
come
you-
to full effect?
No. They said you have
An
to
hour.
give.
No, it's an hour
No,
before you
d-
can go
hold-
swimming.
No, hold on. So they make the pill and they say you can't give it to him. You've got to wait 15 minutes for potency. And so when they're up on the wall, Fezzik's like, "Has it been 15 minutes?" And then he goes like, "It doesn't matter. We're in a hurry." Like, and he gives him the pill. And apparently it was Cary Elwes' idea to do the whole head flop thing where his head kept going backwards and forwards. Because they were like, he was like, "I understand, Rob, that you want me to be mostly dead, but what does that mean?" And so they had to like really talk it through. And he's like, "Okay, maybe you wiggle your finger a little bit, and then your head tilts that way, and then it tilts that way, and it." But so,
I'd
but
love
then
to
he
see
wasn't
that.
allowed to swim for an hour, a good hour.
Mostly dead.
Your friend here is only mostly
Slightly
dead.
I'd love
alive.
to have seen that conversation where you say that to the director, and the director suddenly realizes, "Oh crap, what the hell do I mean by that?"
Well, you of all people know,
What
like
am I doing with my life?
this is what this
More
is not. What,
butter.
it's very much The Office when Pam is like, "Did I go to work this morning expecting to be throwing together a bird funeral? No, but you never know what your day is going to turn into at this place."
So this scene where Prince Humperdinck and Buttercup are finally getting married, sort of.
Marriage.
This was on a sign at my bridal shower. Marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today. The impressive clergyman.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
yeah, that's
fantastic.
the best credit ever in a movie. The impressive clergyman.
Right.
Yeah.
He could have been the speech impediment
No,
clergyman,
no,
but no,
no.
he is the impressive
impressive.
No,
clergyman.
the clergyman who is kind of acting like Terry Jones.
With a little bit of Harry
Yeah,
Carey thrown
yeah,
in. Just
yeah.
a smidge.
That dweem within a dweem.
That blessed arrangement.
Yeah. Speaking of famous British actors, you know, the king in this, the old
I cannot
king,
remember his name right now, but
He-
she kissed
He's
me.
great too.
Do you know he played Field Marshal Montgomery in Patton? It's the same guy.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. That's called range, folks.
No, that's even more.
Yeah.
That's even better than Christopher Guest. Oh, but I do love this part that we kind of missed because they do this bit where they make Fezzik look like the Dread Pirate Roberts by throwing a Holocaust cloak on him. But when they're up on the wall, Wesley specifically says, "Oh, what I wouldn't give for a Holocaust cloak." And Fezzik's like, "Oh, I've got one like this." And he just pulls it out of his shirt.
yeah.
And he's like, "Why didn't you list that among our assets in the first place?" And it's just like,
No, he says that about the wheelbarrow.
The wheelbarrow.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no, because Fezzik's,
Yeah.
or
I
they're
only
like,
had
where
a
did,
wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
if we had a wheelbarrow, that would be
Oh,
something.
What about
Yeah.
that one?
Oh, I
Which
left it by the
conveniently
by the
have.
albino.
there he is, Field Marshal Montgomery.
He does such a great job in this too. Also a memorable role. The
Yes.
side roles in this
Everyone
are
does a
so
great
memorable.
job.
Oh, she
this
kissed
movie.
me.
And it's great because she's like,
This
you've always
looks
been
so uncomfortable for Carrie.
Yeah, look at
It's
that.
getting
Walking
dragged,
sideways.
you know.
But
dragged like a rag doll by
Yeah,
Andre the
yeah.
Giant. Yeah.
she says she's sort of saying goodbye to him. She's like, "Oh, you've always been so kind to me, and I won't be seeing you again because I'll be killing myself as soon as I reach the honeymoon suite."
And he
He's
returns,
like, "Well,
won't that be nice?
I actually like the fact that the king lives in a castle that has a honeymoon suite.
Yeah,
So
I thought
he
about
has
that.
he has like a sole room set aside for honeymoons that then they'll move out of that one.
Well, where else are you
afterwards,
going to
and-
get married in Florin? I mean, I'm pretty much that's got to be the destination spot for weddings. That's how they afford
That's
to keep
true.
the castle.
I was about to say that's probably how they afford the castle.
How do you think
Yeah,
Disney keeps,
yeah.
the upkeep on its castle? Because people actually do get married there. So
Mm-hmm. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
no, you got to do a whole line if you're going to do Inigo Montoya.
My
Yeah.
name is Inigo Montoya.
If I do the whole thing, I got to pay him like 5 cents. I'm
Well,
not doing that.
somebody made a great meme where it was like, "This is classic networking. You establish your name.
Yeah.
You tell them what your goal is, and like something like that.
Well, no,
This is-
hello. You tell them your name.
A nice
you
greeting.
You establish how you know them.
Yes. And then you put your goal
purpose,
at the end of it.
and then a call to action.
Yes, call to action. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
And he, it'd be a good drinking game to either drink sometime.
It would kind of ramp up towards the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, in the beginning, it could be every time someone says inconceivable.
Yeah.
And as you wish, because
And
Cary
as
always
you
says
wish.
it about 15 times in the
I
first
always
30
lose
minutes.
drinking games because about halfway in, I just start drinking.
Yeah.
You forget.
Yeah,
you just,
I'm like,
oh,
are we
I
playing
finished
a
it.
game?
Oops.
Well, it's like on New Girl where Dermot Mulroney is like, Jess, you guys play this thing called True American. I'm an adult. If I want to drink, I'm just going to drink. I don't need a game as an excuse. Like, but
Well, it's an extra sip.
yes, that's what it is. It's just a
You finish your
supplementary
drink
sip.
faster.
I don't want to drink, but the rules say I have to.
My hands are tied.
Yeah.
So now Inigo is chasing after the six-fingered man,
Yes.
Count Rugen.
finally avenging his father.
But he's a great piano player.
He
With,
can hit notes
with 11
nobody
fingers.
else
Yeah.
can.
That's a Gattaca reference for like the 3 people who still remember
I was about to
Gattaca.
say that one
Yeah.
went by me. Normally your jokes, I get them, but this time I missed it.
It was a good movie.
This was a devastating moment too, though, because you have the
Yeah.
fake out where you think that Buttercup marries Humperdinck,
Oh,
and
that-
that's where Fred Savage flips out. But then you have this even
Yeah,
bigger
this is the
fake
one,
out,
yeah.
where you think Inigo's going to die because the prince, or excuse me, the count turns around and throws a dagger into him, Jason Momoa style. And well, this was pre Jason Momoa, so Jason Momoa, you got Count Rugen style. Good for you.
Great.
But-
Now, Jason, you really want him on our bad side? Or
He'd
you want to
cop
be on
to
his
it.
bad side?
He'd cop to it.
I hope so.
Aquaman
That's a
has honor.
compliment.
Yeah, that's why I said good on you.
No,
You
all
got
right,
Count
all
Rugen
right.
style. That's awesome. Except he's like 4 stories tall, like Andre the Giant, so he can throw like 4 axes at once.
Well,
This
see,
guy did it coward style. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
See,
I'm just talking style and finesse. That's all I mean.
okay, so one thing that does confuse me about this, having seen the movie many times, and maybe the book clears this up. I mean, he does get stabbed pretty bad.
Yeah, he does. Inigo does.
And is he just fine at the end of the
It
book?
is a fairy tale.
Yeah.
No, but so he's okay.
They never really touch
Yeah.
back
Okay,
on it.
all
I
right.
mean, he's okay enough to jump out of a window onto
Yeah.
a horse.
And they
by the
sew up
way.
his
Yeah.
story.
and he probably becomes the next
Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yeah,
Robert.
yeah,
He
that's
make a
right,
wonderful
that's
Dread Pirate
right.
Roberts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be the Dread
Oh,
Pirate. I'd be Bob,
Bob the Pirate.
I thought you were going to say Bob the Builder.
the Dread Pirate Bob.
Bob's Burgers. But yeah, that's another of the most requested quoted lines that Cary always gets. There's a shortage of perfect breasts in this world. It would be a pity to damage yours.
That line is probably because I've been watching this, trying to think what was it that got it to PG, and because
Says breast.
I honestly think that might have been.
Believe me, worse things have been said in other movies that we've watched.
Well, yeah, but I mean, because it's really like, yeah, it's PG, but come on,
There's
I guess
a
it's
good
the
bit of blood.
violence,
There's
yeah.
blood and
Well, so he
killing.
becomes the Dread. Well, we think that he's going to become the next.
yeah, because they just
yeah.
sort of leave it off on a kind of a vague note where Wesley.
But before
offers the role.
that, he finally finds his nemesis, Christopher Guest.
Yes.
And this is a great sword fight, and I really like how before he kills him, he says, offer me
money.
yes,
Offer me everything I want.
Offer me power. Promise me that too. Everything I have and more. Please offer me everything I ask for. Anything you want. And what does he say, Cece?
I want my father back, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's a really and
Epic.
it is. It's funny because
Perfect.
in a real way, you can kind of take a step back and think that the movie is really sort of about that story.
That's kind of the through line.
It really is.
That's like PG line right there.
Because-
yeah. No, you're right there.
Because you got to wonder, like, how was Wesley on Buttercup's trail before she got kidnapped? You don't know where he figured out where she was.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, he knows what
That
country
is a good.
she
That
lives
is a
in.
good point.
Like, when did Wesley get on her trail?
Yeah.
Because he just suddenly appears, and that's another great line where they're sailing toward Gilder, and Inigo's like, "Oh, there's somebody following us," and that's where the whole that would be inconceivable. Nobody in Florin knows what we've done, or nobody in Gilder knows what we've done, and nobody in Florin could have gotten here so fast. And Inigo keeps going, "Are you sure? I wonder if he is using the same wind we are using." And there's just this mysterious sailboat chasing them, and you don't know where Wesley figured out where she was. Like, he knows where they grew up, and I guess he was going back to get her. You got to
But
wonder
how would he
if-
have known she was on the ship?
you have to wonder if he was like on his way to get her, and then he noticed that she got.
Oh, he was definitely
accosted.
tracking them.
He had to have been.
Well, it like you said, it's a fairy tale, and repeatedly, the
Logic.
line is, Wesley will come for me.
Yes.
And so, it's the first time she's in real danger.
Well,
so of course,
She annoys me a bit though, because when she quote unquote marries Prince Humperdinck, she distinctly says he didn't come, and she just kind of loses her faith and shut up, Jason.
We already established she's quite
in
dumb.
Japan, man comes first.
He didn't arrive.
Philip,
Oh, God.
I'm arriving.
Stop it. Stop it.
It works every time, folks.
So I love this part because Wesley finally confronts Prince Humperdinck, and Prince Humperdinck says, "To the death."
No.
And he says, "No, to the pain."
I'm not sure I'm quite familiar with that phrase.
And then proceeds to
Describe how to the pain means leaving you in anguish, because at first you take out his eyes, you take out his
feet.
you take off his nose, you take off his feet, his hands, so on and so forth. And then my ears, I understand. Let's get on with it. No.
Yeah.
And he says, I leave your ears, and I'll tell you why, so that you can hear every shriek of every child, every scream of every woman.
Which technically he could cut his ears off and he would still be able to hear.
Yeah.
So I do, bit of a...
Once again, where's the poetry
Yeah,
in you? Jeez,
come on,
Jason. It is a fairy tale, as you said a moment ago.
I'm just
so
saying,
quit ruining it.
But he knows that Prince Humperdinck truly is a coward, and
Yes.
it doesn't take much to intimidate him
Yeah.
in the end.
It really doesn't. It just takes Wesley standing up, pointing his sword, and saying,
Yeah.
"Drop your sword."
Yeah.
And he does.
Which is kind of interesting because, like you said, he's in the book, he's a hunter and all
Yeah.
this other
He's a
stuff.
little more hardcore
Because,
in the-
he
in the
does
book,
seem like
yeah.
he would at least, say, well, I can probably fight this guy.
I honestly don't remember what he does in the book. I'd have to I couldn't get through the whole thing as of late, but everybody. It's like I said, there are little tweaks to everyone in the characters.
Well, and it's funnier. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and that's one of the things that they talked about with Cary Elwes in the first, because they were like, you've got this kind of Errol Flynn quality, especially with
he
the
really
mustache.
does. Yeah, he really has Errol Flynn.
And
big
Chris
time.
Sarandon was like, yeah, he's this handsome, dashing, young leading man, and he can also do like dialects, and
Easy,
he does
Chris.
anecdote.
Okay, all right.
Well, Chris Sarandon does not strike. The only other movie I even
And he's
remember seeing
dreamy.
him in, he's so dreamy. But the only other movie I can even remember seeing Chris Sarandon in is Tale of Two Cities.
I looked him up today, and I was because I know I've seen him in other stuff, but
Yeah,
it's,
and not
he's-
to insult
yeah.
him, it's just I don't know. I'm not familiar with his work, unfortunately.
Well, there are so many actors out there that you've seen so many times, but you don't know their names because they're not number one in the credits.
Well, this is
you
Susan
know?
Sarandon's ex-husband, so we should know who he is, I guess. But
Yeah, and she was on Rick and Morty.
Nah.
she was.
Yeah,
she
so
was the
that's
therapist.
that's what
She's
I
the
know her
star.
from. Yeah,
She is.
she's not even in the movie, and she's the star.
Susan, we love you.
Because
Have
you
your
hear
people call our
Sarandon
people.
and you think Susan Sarandon.
You do, and it apparently wasn't even her last name anyway. I didn't even realize
is
that.
now.
It is. She kept it.
Yeah,
She kept it.
It's hers now.
But okay, and here the four white horses. So before they go in to storm the castle and all that, Inigo's like, okay, Here are the logistics. Once we get in, how do I find Count Rugen? Once I find Count Rugen, how do I find you again, Wesley? Like, and he's like, we'll work it out. And Fezzik's like, don't pester him. He's had a rough day. But they all just sort of gel and magically find each other. And Fezzik finds these 4 white horses that they can escape on
Conveniently.
into the dusk. But the horses had not a much bigger part, but they were Prince Humperdinck's 4 white horses that he used for his hunting escapades. And they were all of equal like size and measure, and he would take all 4 of them out at once. And as one of them fatigued of him riding he would switch to another
get a fresh
one.
horse, yeah.
But but I'm like, as a kid, that confused the hell out of me because I'm like, wouldn't they all just get tired anyway from running all that time? But I guess it's different when somebody's riding on your back, I suppose.
Moving on.
I don't know the logistics of being a horse. Why? What are you thinking about, Jason?
Well, no, I just like the part where, he's like, you don't want to hear about the kiss. And, and Jay Leno's like, come on, I really want to hear about the kiss. I really want to hear about it.
We have young Adam and young Jay Leno.
He doesn't mind the kissing so much.
And then so Granddad's
He's
like,
grown.
he kissed the shit out of her.
I
he phrased it differently.
I have a funny story that this was actually my, example of a fairy tale, I would say, growing up. When I was in about 1st grade and I had my first kiss on the playground, I said I wanted to kiss
That's awe-inspiring.
like they do in The Princess Bride.
Oh.
And then recently, thinking about this, I felt really bad because...
Puts a lot of pressure on somebody.
he didn't know what the heck I was talking about. We were in first grade. So my mom was a little lenient, I think, with the things I watched compared to some. But I remember thinking, well, that wasn't what I thought.
Yeah.
That was kind of wet and weird. And I expressed that, and I really hope I didn't traumatize him. And
I think it's safe to say you did. I think that kid has at some point related that story to a therapist.
I'm pretty sure
probably hates. He's the one person that hates this movie.
Oh God, yeah, you're right. That's the guy.
Listeners, Cece's being too modest. When I post pictures of her, you'll see that this guy is probably still bragging about that kiss to this very day. Like,
so the best thing about that, his name is Wesley,
Yay!
not Wesley, but Wesley. And that's
I don't
probably
care.
what
Close
made
enough.
me think of that I wanted to kiss him like the Princess Bride.
That's like
of
a guy's
course.
worst nightmare, We're about
gotta
to
live
kiss,
up
and
to
she
this.
says, "I want you to kiss me like," and then she names a movie you've never heard
I
of.
want you to draw me like one of
It's
your
like,
French girls.
Shit, wait, was that the one with the shark? Wait, what? I need something.
But this was such a ubiquitous movie.
I damaged him for life because of that.
I don't know though, because this was such a ubiquitous movie in almost every household that we all grew up with it. Depending more so on your age than your gender, because little
your
boys knew
parents.
about this movie.
Oh,
yeah, and your parents.
Yeah. I mean, I do know growing up, more girls that I knew were into this movie.
Well,
Probably
into it,
because of the
sure, but
name.
all of you have seen it.
Yeah.
At the very
However,
least.
my brother loves this movie just as much as I do, and you would not know by meeting him that would be the case because he's like total like rock star guitarist.
Yeah, I've seen his
He's got
pictures.
"As You Like It" tattooed on his forehead.
Tattooed.
I think you mean As You Wish.
Yeah, whatever. See, that's the thing.
You like
That's the thing. See, the girls are really
That's a
into
different
it.
show.
The guys just say so because we want to kiss.
Well, isn't that why you saw Titanic in the first place?
That's
Jason?
exactly why I saw Titanic
get a kiss.
in the front row.
Ew.
Yeah, 4.5
You
hours.
saw those people drowning in 3D.
Yeah.
Damn
You
near.
were trying to traumatize yourself there.
Yeah, well, it was sort of like, oh, let's go out. Oh, what's what movie? Oh, Titanic. Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's a great story. Okay.
A 3-hour tour.
Yeah. 4 hours, and of course, I was in high school, so it's like, oh, my arm's around the girl. 4 hours later, my arm is dead.
Yeah.
Like,
Is my arm still on the girl?
I'm no
I can't
longer
tell
left-handed.
anymore. I'm not left-handed either.
Yes.
But
Way
yeah.
to go.
You're welcome. I brought it back. But
But you didn't bring up Pooh Corner though, so thank you.
You brought up.
I know.
You brought them both up.
You can't say you didn't bring something up because then you brought it up.
No, I do it all the time.
No,
to
that's
her.
it. That's one of his favorite games ever. He's like, I'm not going to mention the show Community because Darth doesn't like it when I
You
talk
brought it
about
up this time.
I know. I told you it's rented space in my head thanks to you, and we've made a deal. You'll
Yes,
be
we
watching
both
Game of
lied to
Thrones.
each other.
Yeah, because it hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened.
Oh please, Adam hasn't watched Rick and Morty. Who cares? Nobody held up their end of that deal.
No,
But
I actually am going to. As soon as I finish Corner Gas, I've actually
I'll watch
decided.
Community as well. We just
Yeah.
need to incorporate it into the show.
But actually,
anyway,
yeah, okay, sorry, go ahead.
But there's a sweet moment to sort of tie off the end of the movie, and we can keep talking for a sec about if we missed any of your notes or anything, Cece. But the end of the movie, the grandson, has finally come full circle, and he enjoyed listening to the book and getting to know all the characters. And at the end, his grandpa's going to leave. He's like, "All right, I'll let you rest." And he goes, "Grandpa, maybe you can come and read it again to me tomorrow." And his grandpa responds with,
Hell no.
"As you wish." Which means I love you,
Yeah.
which is so sweet.
It is sweet.
Yeah.
That's one of those scenes that when you watch it as a kid, you don't even notice it, but when you have kids, it's like,
Yeah.
Because to me, that adds to the story.
yeah, seriously, yeah, it actually does. It gets a little tear.
It's very sweet. I'm surprised that movie went by really fast. It's like you said, it's not the longest movie that we've ever chosen to watch. There have been longer ones, but there's just so much to talk about when it comes to The Princess Bride because it's such a beloved classic.
Well, and having come to the end of the movie, I'm looking at my notes, which are.
I don't even think we need to do Alf to Seinfeld on this.
Yeah,
He's holding up the napkin that his pizza was
yeah.
sitting on earlier.
I don't take notes. It's all in my head.
Oh, you know what I have to mention before we sign off on this? The reason why I call him Cary, listeners, some of you know this and some
All
of
right,
you
everybody
don't.
get comfy.
No, I'll shorten it because I know I've mentioned this story before. Because Jason has made fun
When
of
has that
me.
stopped us?
Never. Jason has made fun of me for calling some stars by their first name, but there's one in the Natural Born universe that I'm allowed to call by their first name. His name is Cary Elwes. Because I met him at Dragon Con several years ago when Meg was too sick to attend with me. You guys most likely remember her from Baron Munchausen and Hercules. But anyway, not to put too fine a point on that, but I went to go meet Cary Elwes on her and my behalf since she was too sick, going through chemo at the time, to attend the drug-infested, germ-fueled monster pit that can be Dragon Con. So she wasn't able to go. But I met him, and he was... I have to say this every time I talk about him. He's the nicest celebrity I've ever met, and just a very good man. He wrote her like a special note on her autograph and just hugged me and told me she was going to be okay, and she was, listeners.
Yeah, and not
it's
to
the
get
magic of Cary
not,
Elwes.
not to get into the details of it, but that was a very sweet gesture on his part.
Yeah.
You know, it's the sort of thing that you kind of you hear about actors doing that, and you just think, God, why don't more? It doesn't take any extra energy or and you can make somebody's life better just by doing this tiny little thing that doesn't cost you anything.
Nope.
It's something we need more of, and that I think that's one reason on Alf to Seinfeld it's all the way up there.
Oh, it's through the roof.
Yeah.
Our Alf to Seinfeld, Alf being the worst, Seinfeld being the best. Cece, where would you rank this movie?
Why is Elf the worst?
Well, it's a how did it hold up sort of scale, because we all loved Alf when we were kids.
But then you grow up and watch it and realize that it's a train wreck. Whereas,
Elf.
horrible.
I thought you said Elf.
oh no, Alf to Seinfeld. So then, as a kid, when
Yeah,
you're,
it makes more sense now, right?
Buddy the Elf, what's your favorite color?
Yeah.
But whereas Seinfeld, they swapped places on the scale because when you're a kid, you think Alf is just the funniest, most
Right.
sophisticated thing in the world. Then you watch it as an adult, and you're like, "Oh God, this is a dumpster fire. What happened?"
Right.
Whereas Seinfeld is, I've equated it to your mom boring you by talking to her friend Trish at the grocery store for 45
Poor
minutes,
Trish.
and you think you're gonna die a slow, painful death of boredom, but then you turn around as an adult, and Seinfeld's funny as hell, and it's so witty and great. So that being said, Alf being the worst, Seinfeld being the best. Where does Princess Bride rank?
Well, I'm going to say the best. I'm going to say Seinfeld because this is one of my favorite movies of all time, obviously. And I think it's still timeless. I love it just as much, if not more.
Technically, if we were going to do the Alf to Seinfeld scale correctly, it would be a 5. Because it is just as good It is.
That's true.
It was fantastic then. It's fantastic. So it's a deceptive scale.
It's a little complicated.
Yeah,
for
it
me
is.
'cause
It's
I-
just as good, but did you understand how good it was when you were a kid? Because that's part of the
No,
scale
no,
too.
I didn't.
No.
I didn't
Because the
understand
humor,
how good it
kicks
was.
in
Yeah.
the older you get. So I can
I
see how it would land.
subconsciously understood how good it was.
Yeah, because you
Yes.
could tell like they were being cheeky, and like you always get the gist of when grown-ups are trying to be funny, but then you grow up and you're like, oh, that was a good line.
Yeah.
Yep.
Please consider me as an alternative to suicide. Like that's funnier the older I get.
Yeah.
It's like a good cheese.
Yeah.
You have to age it for it to
On
be
that
perfect.
note.
Yes. Well, I would just like to say, Cece, thank you very much for driving. You drove 380 miles to get
She
here. I
walked
think?
5,000
think
or
it was-
500
yeah.
miles. What is the song?
Yeah, pretty much.
Thank you very much for braving the traffic in the Atlanta metro area.
God, it is a nightmare.
It is. And I don't have anything else. Do you, either of you have anything else about tonight's movie?
You have any more notes for us, Cece?
No, I remember the epic credit song, "Love is like a storybook story."
Yes.
It's as real as the feelings I feel.
No.
Yep.
That's that about sums
All
it
right. Well, before they start singing,
I heard it too late. Start spreading the news. I don't know why.
you-
Just
Darth, you want to sign us off?
absolutely. Well, listeners, this has also been one of my favorite movies from my childhood, so it has been a pleasure going down this memory lane of multiple memory lanes with Cece today, back to our Starbucks days and back to our childhoods of remembering this just beloved classic, The Princess Bride. So, Cece, I can't thank you enough for once again trekking a million miles across Atlanta to come and see us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we'd love to have you back. So you just, Cece's a big fan of Christmas, listeners, and we might be specializing in some holiday episodes coming up, including Halloween. So stay tuned. Thank you, as always, for spending your drive time, your office time, your ignoring the hell out of everyone else time with us. We really appreciate it. You can reach us at Hindsight is Horrifying on Instagram. You can also reach us at Hindsight Horror on Twitter. Not that anybody is on Twitter anymore.
Oh, and don't forget our new domain.
Yeah, I was going to ask because I cannot remember the domain name. So, or domain name. There we go. So, Jason, what is it?
Yeah, hindsight.show.
You'd think I could remember that, but I can't. But I can remember Hindsight is Horrifying. So that's what this has been. Thanks for joining us, listeners. Hindsight